Hey, I'm Regan Bozeman, host of Token Warrant. Tom, Shuyao, awesome to have you guys here. Tom, maybe we'll kick it over to you to just give a quick introduction on yourself, Dragonfly, how you got into crypto, and what type of stuff you're investing in.
Sure. I'm Tom Schmidt. I'm a GP at Dragonfly. Been here for 5 years. Before Dragonfly, I led product at 0x for 2 years. And then before that, I was a PM at Instagram. So kind of came out of the Bay and then been at Dragonfly for a while. Dragonfly, we're a global crypto venture fund. We've been around since 2018. We kind of operate like a normal venture fund in that we find early stage projects and builders that are working on really important problems, and we back them and partner with them for kind of a long period. But we only invest in things that are crypto and crypto related. So exchanges, layer ones, layer twos, DeFi projects, consumer projects, dev infra, kind of all the above. I think the other thing people know us for is we have this East-West focus. So we have about half the team in kind of the US and Europe, half the team in Asia. Offices are kind of split, portfolio kind of split, and really see, crypto is very different than Web2 in that it's global. And so when we're looking at projects, helping projects think about go-to-market, we have to think about getting a global picture of what they're doing. So it's me, it's Dragonfly.
Awesome. Shuyao, Brother Bing, Dubbing, a woman who goes by many names. It's awesome to have you on. Yeah, would love to just hear your background, how you got into crypto, a bit about MegaETH, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I got into crypto in 2017. I used to live in Africa. I think for a lot of people who grew up or have lived in emerging markets, crypto is quite inevitable. I really believe that crypto is building this alternative financial rail and also social layer that's much needed. I do believe that poverty is man-made, but we can go deeper into the philosophical question another time. So back in 2017, I joined Consensys as one of the founding team for their UAE office. Spent some time doing business development in Dubai, then went to Asia, was in charge of the APAC BD, and then went back to the US for a short stint in a notorious business school. I went back to Consensys for another many years. So I spent probably a total of 5-6 years at Consensys. By the time I left and co-founded MegaETH earlier this year, I was leading our global business development, covering products that everyone is quite familiar with, MetaMask, Infura, also bootstrapped Linear, another ZK EVM from 0 to 1. I sunset a bunch of products as well. I sunsetted Truffle, I sunsetted Quorum. So I've seen quite a life cycle of different crypto products from 0 to 1 and 1 back to 0. So I met my co-founders. They're extremely technically capable, and the design and architecture of MegaETH is unorthodox, elegant, and extremely differentiated. So I decided to join MegaETH and build out the ecosystem.
Awesome. I definitely want to get more into MegaETH and kind of how it's architected and different from some of the other Ethereum scaling solutions. But I'm curious, of all the products that you kind of sunset at MetaMask, what were you saddest to see go?
I think Truffle was hard to see go. And the reason was Truffle was everyone's entry point, developers' entry point into crypto. But then Truffle kind of did not keep up with the crypto innovation. And then came with Foundry, came with Hot Hat. So I think the lesson learned to everyone is you can't be complacent. Building crypto, you constantly have to innovate. You have to also think about customer experiences.
Awesome. Maybe one more question just before diving into MegaETH, but maybe we'd just be curious where both of you think Ethereum is kind of at this point in time. I feel like it's at a bit of a juncture. I mean, Shuyao, you've been 100% focused on the ecosystem for a long time. Tom, you're obviously, very familiar with it. But yeah, curious just what you guys think at a high level, kind of what the path forward is from here.
We might have slightly different perspectives. I think, I think Ethereum is kind of in the, journey into the wilderness section of the hero's journey where, it's always been many things to many people. It's been, world computer, settlement layer, whatever. I think it's at this point where, I think the EF has basically said, hey, sort of the end game for Ethereum is we're going to be effectively settlement layer, DA layer for all these L2s. And the L2s are going to sort of solve the problems that we were originally going to try to solve with starting. And it's almost kind of like a anarcho-capitalism kind of approach of everyone kind of does their own thing, and hopefully we get sort of a good market result. And I think people aren't totally satisfied with that. And so now it's trying to kind of thread back and figure out, okay, like, well, what can we be beyond this sort of just pure DA layer for rollups? How do we make the L1 more usable? Are we making the right trade-offs? I think that's always kind of the thing I see in crypto, and actually maybe very relevant to MegaETH, is there's a lot of sort of preconceived ideas and constraints that people are like, oh yeah, this is clearly a constraint on this space. And at some point, people are like, actually, maybe we shouldn't have this constraint, or maybe this constraint should be different. And so like for Ethereum, it's, home staking and running a node. And it's like, okay, maybe actually this is like a unnecessary constraint to place on development. What happens if we sort of loosen this up? What if we change our hardware requirements? What if we change what it means to participate in the network? And that can sort of open up a lot of new opportunities. And so I think that's kind of what Ethereum is going through right now, is like, you just need a bigger vision other than, yeah, we just store blobs. I don't think anyone's, going to be a missionary for like blob storage.
No, especially with with the branding they chose for that. I mean, like, before getting into like the MegaETH specifics, maybe just like, curious kind of like from a historical context, you've seen this evolution, like, where do you think Ethereum is at this moment in time?
Yeah, I agree with Tom. I think Ethereum has a branding and marketing perspective. Stroking this with Vitalik yesterday at MegaZoo. He's like, oh, maybe we should work with calm people. I was like, who are the calm people? It's like communication people. We need people who can better communicate. So, but I'm not worried about that at all. I think that's a problem that's easily fixable. And I do think Ethereum is a living organism. It has the capability of find problem, identify, and then tackle it. My major challenge with Ethereum is actually on the application builder side. I think for the past many years, a lot of builders are being spoiled and used to build nothing and talk quite a lot. So right now, you kind of need to rebuild the muscle of like, build something useful, then you can get venture backing, grow, find product market fit. So that's what I'm trying to insert, this level of like build useful stuff rather than just talk about things at MegaZoo. On the other hand, though, I have been quite impressed by the level of talents I'm seeing in Chiang Mai, given all the pop-up cities happening. People are eager to build new stuff, although people need direction of what to build, right? Like everything we're seeing on on Solana in terms of consumer application deepin are relatively new to Ethereum, even though I believe the consumer application started from Ethereum, right? Like whatever happening on Solana in terms of what is that social plugin? What is it called? Blink?
Blinks, yeah.
Blinks, yeah. I mean, that's what Mask Network did in 2020, right? It's not even new, but somehow we forgot about it. Even with a Fantasy Top, which I know is a Dragonfly portfolio, even with Frantech, right? Innovation happened on Ethereum, but somehow we don't take it through the finishing line. So I think right now it's time for application builder to come in, build something useful, find product market fit, and actually grow it out rather than treating it as a pet projects.
I love that vision. I mean, it's interesting. You kind of mentioned this like lack of direction or people wandering in the wilderness. I feel like maybe one of the advantages that Solana has had this cycle is it is just a much more like top-down driven company, kind of more like a traditional Silicon Valley startup where like, there are some independent organizations like Jump working on Fire Dancer, but like, it's not like this like Ethereum kind of like kumbaya, like we're all moving it forward. It's like, hey, here's what we want to see get built. And there's maybe a little bit less like duplication. I mean, coming this full circle to MegaETH, like, what is MegaETH, and what are you building? Like, what problems did you want to solve when starting it?
Yeah, so MegaETH is the first real-time blockchain. We really differentiate from any other blockchain, not just in terms of throughput TPS. TPS is a measurement of capacity, not capability. What defines the real-timeness in MegaETH is really the latency and block time. So compared to other fast chains such as Solana, which has 400 millisecond latency, MegaETH actually has 10 millisecond, and we're improving it to sub-millisecond. So what does it really mean? You can actually have applications that are not possible on any other chain. Think about autonomous world, a fully on-chain Minecraft, where players can turn every action into a block. Think about high frequency trading, which is not even possible on Solana. For the first time, you can have it happen on MegaETH. So what we're trying to build is a highly differentiated blockchain in terms of latency, and then build applications that's only possible on MegaETH. I would add, though, sometimes when I introduce MegaETH, with everything I'm saying about real-timeness, people look at me and be like, okay, you're just fast. And then I would always add what Tom said to us when we were announcing our fundraise. Tom said that MegaETH is the iPhone moment for crypto. I oftentimes think back on it, and I think it's quite an accurate description because everything we're trying to do is quite curated. Right? We have a very unique architecture. It's a centralized sequencer, extremely decentralized block validating network. And because it's so curated, it has that premium experience of being fast, of being real time. And the way we are treating our ecosystem is also extremely curated. We work with a small number of application builder and make sure that their experiences really nailed it. So if the audience take away one thing, I do think that MegaETH as the iPhone moment or iPhone equivalent for crypto is something quite accurate.
Well, it's a strong endorsement, and definitely want to talk about the fundraise. I guess just maybe so listeners have full context. You think what's the best way to think about MegaETH and kind of the history of Ethereum scaling solutions? There's been Plasma, optimistic rollups, ZK rollups. Is the right way to think about MegaETH basically as an L2, and the primary kind of speed vector is just centralizing the sequencer and really beefing that up?
If you look at the history of types of blockchain, we all know that layer ones can never be scalable. It's a very well-known problem in computer science spheres called the strangler's problem, because layer ones, the nodes have to do all tasks at the same time: data availability, consensus, sequencing as well. So when the nodes have to do all tasks together, the performance is dependent on the slowest action, which a lot of time is sequencing. So now enter layer 2. So when all the layer 2s coming out, everyone was focusing on one thing, which is the consensus aspect, right? So we have the optimistic fraud proof, then we have the zero knowledge fraud proof, but none of this actually increased performance. The performance bottleneck, which was eloquently elaborated by my co-founder Elon in a measurement test, the bottleneck is actually on the sequencer. And if I may go a little bit deeper, it's actually on the Merkle-Patricia tree. So what MegaETH has done is we decoupled the sequencer from the layer 2 full node, and we really optimized it. We rewrote the entire state trie. We are using JIT compilation. We have our own parallelization. So compared to any other blockchain that uses the Aptos block STM, we actually invented our own. We believe it's a lot better than everyone else. So now you have this really powerful, beefy sequencer, and we complement that with a very decentralized block validating network that you can run on your mobile phone. And then we are using a high throughput data availability network, which is EigenDA, which is way more performant than the Ethereum DA or alternative DA like Celestia and Adveil. So what you're getting is an extremely heterogeneous network that has never been thought of, right? Powerful beefy sequencer, very lightweight validating network, high throughput data availability. But all of this is possible because we derive security from Ethereum. That's what differentiates MegaETH from everyone else.
No, I think it's a good way of putting it. I think it kind of goes back to kind of this pathfinding thing of a lot of projects get stuck in this local, maximum because they are they've sort of navigated the idea maze with all these sort of assumptions from past work, and they get stuck and they're not able to sort of zoom out and think about, okay, what if we just thought about this problem differently? What if you had a different set of constraints? And I think you really let kind of where the optimistic rollup, research tree kind of came from. It came out of, Plasma and Ethereum sharding, which was okay, the sequencer and the verifier, they're going to have a very similar set of, capacity and a very similar set of sort of compute architecture. And that's kind of where they came out. It's okay, what if you didn't have that? I think the iPhone thing, and there's a few different sort of threads to it. One is obviously just, it's a focus on features and experience and not specs. And that's very, very much an Apple thing, is it's the thing that it's experience that people have with the product. It's not about the thing. It's a retina display. It's not a 250 Now it's not a 215 DPI display, but I think it's also sort of realizing that this is like a different product category, right? It's not a small PC that runs Windows and uses Intel chips that sits in your pocket. It's a totally different operating system with a totally different chip architecture. And that's sort of what unlocks all these other new things versus let's try to take a PC and shrink it down and sort of get all the baggage and all the sort of decision that people made previously when they were designing a computer that just doesn't really work for a mobile environment. And so I think that's a lot of what MegaETH is doing. Is just like, actually the roll-up ecosystem, we can sort of change a lot of those assumptions and change a lot of those constraints, and we should lean into that, and that unlocks all these other new opportunities.
It makes a lot of sense, and I feel like, this whole infrastructure flywheel, like a lot of it is kind of, I think, ignored that, again, people don't care what resolution their display is, right? Like they want photos to look good. Shuyao, maybe like using you mentioning the fundraise as a segue, like, you guys announced this $20 million round maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Like, can you just like walk through MegaETH's fundraising at a high level, and then maybe like how you first kind of became familiar with Dragonfly and got to know Tom and the team?
I have a long history with Dragonfly, not so much with Tom there.
Sounds like an ominous segue.
No, in a good way.
Okay.
A very good way. I've known Haseeb since 2019. So back in the days, I'm also a journalist. I have a column with Decrypt. So I write quite a lot. I used to cover China in crypto for Decrypt. My column is called Dabbing. And a segue, by the way, the Dabbing is the Chinese name for Bitcoin, which is also the name of my column. So I used to write, and then I think I just cold DM Haseeb back in 2019. We start chatting. I got to know him as a person, also as a fellow writer. And funny enough, in 2020, Haseeb actually offered me to work at Dragonfly as a communication partner, as a writer. But obviously, my entire history is business development. But we kept in touch. I hope he's still reading my column. I hope Tom occasionally does too, as well. But I really, to me, Dragonfly is that global perspective also pretty much describes myself, right? I was born in Asia, working crypto. I think I've been one of the few female Asian a leader in a large Western crypto company. And I truly think crypto is global. So I really resonate with Dragonfly in terms of that philosophy. But I think second of all, I told Tom that I really like every investor in Dragonfly. I think Haseeb is someone that everyone looks up to. Tom probably has the sharpest mind. And every time I talk to Tom, I'm just like, I'm ready for criticism because he's always ready to give very constructive feedback. Tom, you can edit this part out if you don't like.
No, this is great. I love being known for giving constructive feedback.
As Sanat, who I got to know more, is extremely technically capable and extremely caring. But anyway, I can go deeper into the individual investor at Dragonfly, which we're extremely happy about. But going back to how we got to know the fund and decide to work with them, I think rich history with Haseeb. But more importantly, we talked to almost every single VC in the entire crypto industry. Dragonfly was the only one who pushed us to go to the extreme. Right, the idea of if you don't take a meaningful trade-off, you are not making meaningful impact was something that Haseeb was able to articulate with us. Right, everyone was telling us don't do centralized sequencer because it sounds bad. You should decentralize. Haseeb was like, centralize the freaking hell out of it because that's what the industry need, and that's how you go and compete with Solana. Right? I think that was so revealing. That's something what we need from an investor. An investor should not ask us to be as mid-curve as everyone else. An investor should be there to help us to find our own identity. And that's the moment when I realized that Dragonfly was my investor.
Pushing you for the mid-curve, definitely, hopefully something no investors are doing. I mean, Tom, maybe from like your perspective, I'd love to just like understand, getting to know Shuyao and the team in MegaETH, and then like, it sounds like there's maybe come like some back and forth on like the idea and product roadmap as part of like getting a deal done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Shuyao said, got to know her a little bit when we're talking about her role here, and I've kind of kept in touch and admire her writing and opining online. I think the other touch point was Elong. read this blog post that we put out in 2022 called the AMM test, a no bullshit look at chain performance. And again, I think if you go back to that era, you think about how people compare performance across different blockchains, people always cite TPS, which is like just like the most like bullshit metric, because it is totally, it means totally different things for totally different chains, right? It can be consensus messages, it can be different types of transactions. You can, it's sort of classic, was it Goodhart's law? Whenever a metric becomes a measure of performance, it seems to be a good metric or a good measurement. And, people would just optimize for like the cheapest, simplest transactions to juice the TPS. And it's like, that's not actually what you want for like a good benchmark. Is what's going to be representative of how people actually use blockchains. And again, what is going to be representative of their experience. And if you look at what, at least at that time, a very significant percentage of transaction fees in block space was going towards were AMM swaps. So people trading on like a Uniswap V2 style constant product AMM. And it's like, well, if that is actually the killer app and that's actually people want to do, how do chains compare for AMM swaps across different types of chains? So the blog post, we basically built this sort of script test harness, ran a bunch of different nodes across different blockchains, and try to see, well, how many swaps on like a Uniswap V2 style AMM can we do in a given block in over a period of time for these different chains? And then we have sort of a unified look at chain performance for something, again, that is a scenario that's very, very common. And so published this blog post, sort of comparing all these different chains, looking at how many AMM swaps they could do. And I think Elon read this and reached out to GM, who's another member in the Dragonfly team who authored it. And those two kind of struck up a conversation. And then from there, kind of weaved to the rest of the team. And I got to sit down with them at East Denver almost 2 years ago. So it's been a fun time.
Out of curiosity, we can link in the show notes to like the blog post, but like, were there any like surprising, maybe actually like people perceive this blockchain to be fast, but like in practice, it's actually not?
I think when you look at TPS quota numbers, there's like orders of magnitude difference across chains. And of course, when you look at AMMs, actually there still is a difference. There's several factor difference across chains, but it shrinks pretty substantially. And there's also obviously differences between, is everyone trying to touch the same piece of state? Is there sort of a hotspot? Are swaps going through multiple different pools or sort of just one pool? There's, fundamentally at a certain point, if everybody is touching the same piece of state, things have to happen, serially. But for everything else, that's kind of where parallelization takes in. And, you see Solana, I think, obviously at that time being super outperformant, but I think not by the sort of order of magnitude or more that people kind of quoted or assumed. And again, that's kind of more representative of the actual experience of using these different chains.
I feel like this is like a case study in like Dragonfly's edge, like publishing this like very novel technical research, and actually like smart founders reaching out to you guys. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it worked. They fell for the trap.
I'm still waiting for a blog post from Dragonfly on high performance chain.
Okay, we'll do an AMM test too.
Yeah, when the mainnet's live. Shuyao, you and the team, I think, have been working on this for, it sounds like maybe like 2 years. Like, when did you guys actually put the round together, and what made you all think kind of like, okay, like we're ready now, like we want to raise this money, this is what we want to do with it?
Yeah, so before I joined MegaETH, my co-founder Elon has been working on this by himself, and he called this the darkest time of his career. So he graduated from Stanford, focused on low latency data center compute, and he was telling me something. He was like, doing research on things that's just too advanced for even the big tech company. So he came across crypto and realized that everyone in crypto is not looking at the problem the right way. It's actually optimizing the sequencer. And he did a bunch of performance tests. And he had a really hard time raising. But as a solo technical founder, our pre-seed round was extremely difficult because he's just a PhD guy who loves the research. But luckily, we had amazing backers for the pre-seed round. And then we did a bunch of performance tests, and the result came up pretty strong that like validate some of his assumptions. So the decision to raise a second round was based on that performance test, and also the decision to actually build out an ecosystem. So when I joined MegaETH, we decided to raise a big round because we need more capital to build out the middleware, to build out the chain, but also to grow an ecosystem, everything from marketing, branding, or for example, I'm at MegaZoo right now, working with 50 builders in a pretty nice hotel. All of these require additional fresh funding round. So the decision to really raise a big round was because the our technical assumptions was validated. And second one was we need to build an ecosystem that's obviously very differentiated from existing chains.
I feel like that's a good segue. Like we have to ask about MegaZoo. Maybe curious like about that, and then like maybe that is a segue. Like I feel like y'all have approached ecosystem building a little bit differently than like maybe some ecosystems where it's like, okay, we have like the hackathons and the grant program, and then we try to like get companies VC funded. We need the AMM, we need the lending protocol. At least in our conversations, it seems like you think about things differently. So yeah, I would love to hear about like MegaZoo and kind of the general approach to ecosystem building.
Yeah, my team often complain that my personality is if everyone else does it, I just automatically don't want to do it. Even though sometimes it's probably good for us to a fault. We as a company really value creativity. That's just another better way to say it. So when I decided to build out the ecosystem, all my learnings was based on running BD at Consensys for 6 years and working with other existing chains, right? So the idea of doing things differently wasn't just an impulsive behavior, but I've seen the success and also failure case with a lot of other chains. So we have two guiding principles for us to build an ecosystem. The first one is we believe in 0 to 1 use cases, right? Because our chain is 0 to 1. It has fundamental unlock. So the only reason we would have a successful ecosystem is if we focus on 0 to 1 applications that are also fully on-chain. So that's guiding principle number one. Guiding principle number two was I believe in co-living and co-building. I think in an age of AI ruling the whole world, everyone is remote. The only way to build out a sticky, long-lasting ecosystem is to have people working together face to face. So with these two guiding principles, the way we're building our ecosystem is manifested in a builders program called Mega Mafia. Mega Mafia, we only work with 10x or, right now if I inflate it a little bit, 100x builders who are building 0 to 1 applications on MegaETH, with primarily focusing on DeFi, consumer, and DePIN use cases. And a second part is we've been facilitating an environment where everyone come together and work with each other. So for example, in May this year, I rented out a hotel in Berlin. So we did a little Mafia Berlin takeover. Everyone flew in. We worked every day together. We whiteboard together. What are the novel use cases that can't be built on Solana, for example? How can we build it out together? And then MegaZoo is a second attempt of such an experiment. So we have 50 builders in Chiang Mai in Thailand right before DevCon. Everyone is tasked to build something novel that can't be built on any other chains. That's using both MegaETH and also EigenLayer because MegaETH uses EigenDA. So as a result, right, if we look at Mega Mafia right now, we have about a dozen teams. We have raised close to 50 million pre-seed into the Mega Mafia ecosystem. I don't talk quite a lot about it because I feel like we want to launch our testnet and actually show how differentiated these dApps are. But I'm extremely pleased with the type of application and the caliber of builders. So I'm obsessed with autonomous world, but think about like autonomous world use cases, think about novel prediction market, think about high frequency trading use cases, think about game shows, right? Like that uses like a meme coin as a reward mechanism. Think about fully on-chain museums, right? Like wacky ideas that you can't find it anywhere else. You can find it on MegaETH. And MegaZoo to me is facilitating builders to build out these crazy ideas.
Out of curiosity, can you just like walk, like what does a day at MegaZoo look like? Like, is everyone like in the same room? Do people get meals together? I'm like, I'm an old man in the crypto context, and I don't know, the thought of like being in a hacker house in Thailand, as I'm celebrating my wedding anniversary, it's like it's slightly removed.
Yes, I mean, everyone is getting sick now. I'm joking. I'm getting sick at least. It's how do I describe? So the Sophomon guys arrived yesterday. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Sophomon guys. Yeah. And then they described this as like, it's just very unique, right? You walk in, it's a freaking 5-star hotel. It's beautiful, has this pool, has a little waterfall. And everywhere you go, you see people building Ethereum application. Go to the lobby, someone is coding there. You go to the restaurant, someone's coding there. I am recording this pod from our co-working space. People are literally shipping things away. We have this tea house people are building, right? We basically occupy 80% of the hotel, but everyone is shipping code. And that's it. So you come here, if you don't ship, you should not stay here. Get out.
It sounds like a good place to focus, just like out in Chiang Mai, and you have Brother Bing watching over you if you're not getting your work done.
And the other thing people joke about is, basic kumbaya talks, such as, what is, I don't know, like, are solo stakers good for Ethereum layer 1? Like, talks like this are banned from MegaZoo. Like, you're here to build application. Any like intellectual exercise, you can go to other Zuzalus. Like, no. Like, here's your shipping code.
I like the practical focus. Maybe like just switching gears a bit, Tom, on your end. I mean, we talked about kind of y'all getting familiar with MegaETH and like the process. They're like, how does Dragonfly invest? I feel like we've had some investors on, and they're like, hey, we kind of map the market. There's specific categories we like, and we try to find the best teams in there. Others, it's a little bit more like founder based. Like, hey, we meet talented people, and if we like them, we'll invest. How do you guys kind of think about like what your focus area is?
Yeah, I'd say it does depend on the kind of product and category. There's certainly like a founder market or founder product fit kind of component to any sort of deal. But I would say we tend to be less thesis driven. I think we have a view of the market, why it's playing out the way it's playing out, how we think it might change in the future. But I think we go into a fund saying, well, I really want to put money into XYZ category, or I really want to back this particular idea. We do that sometimes, but I think you can kind of get trapped in your own little island if you do that too hard, and you have to be a little bit more empirical and kind of listen to what the market is telling you, and what the data is telling you, and what the products feel like to a certain extent. I think for something like MegaETH, a lot of you always connect these good signals from founders where like you're just immediately kind of speaking the same language, where it's like, okay, they've also done the prior research, and they're also kind of thinking about this problem in the same way, and like, and they're also kind of being like intellectually honest. I think that's actually like a little bit of a cheat code for founders, is like, if you sort of reveal your weaknesses and sort of like neg yourself a little bit in the pitch, I think it actually makes it a lot more credible versus coming in fully strong. I'm like, okay, I know this is bullshit. I know these metrics are wrong. I know this is not true. I know I'm going to go try your code later. I'm going to go try the product. I'm going to go look at your data. Like, I'm going to go see that it's wrong. And then I'm going to be mad that you like try to bullshit me and sell me and lie to me, versus like just having a very honest, frank conversation about what's working, what's not working. And I think that is kind of what you need in a founder to a certain extent. And it makes me a lot more confident and comfortable in investment. I think for MegaETH, it's kind of having those kind of conversations with Elong about like, here's our performance numbers. Here's some of the things we're uncertain about. Here's what we mean when we say, hey, here's what like the hardware requirements for our sequencer. We're using block STM. We might change later. We're using a lot of RETH. We might change. Like it's just kind of opening the kimono and just being very candid versus, hey, we're doing 1 million TPS. You should give us some money. Like I think that kind of stuff just doesn't really work. So it really depends on the category, but again, I think it's great when you can just have your like frank conversation with founders, and then it makes them seem a lot more credible.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And then like, how do you guys come to decisions? So like you have MegaETH, let's just use an example. You want to invest. How do you convince like Haseeb and the rest of the team? Or do you have to? It's just like, hey, I want to do this. I'm going to.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a formal, investment committee process. So it's the 4 GPs. It's me, Haseeb, Rob, and Bo. And but our IC is open to everybody on the team, and so most people on the team, even non-investment team members, sit in and listen and chime in and give their perspective. So, a lot of time I want to hear from Hildabi on data, or I want to hear from the legal team and get their perspective too. Ultimately, it is our IC is sort of a vote amongst the GPs, and some deals are kind of a no-brainer. Some are a little bit more contentious, and they do get rejected even if one particular GP really wants it. Luckily for MegaETH, I think it was pretty much a no-brainer, and everyone was very jazzed. It also helps that we knew Shuyao. It felt like a good sort of synthesis and kind of what we were looking for in terms of the team. I think you sort of mentioned that Elong had a hard time raising his pre-seed, and I'm like, look, I honestly don't know if I would have done the pre-seed if it were just Elong in a room, but I think Shuyao kind of rounded out the team in terms of amazing technical expertise, shipping ability, community, go-to-market sense. That's sort of the dream team that you want to see versus being sort of one-dimensional. And then, I think we try to have very pro-debate, pro-open culture, and have everyone sort of voice their opinion affirmatively or negatively.
You guys have invested in a lot of leading infrastructure projects, MegaETH included. Like, curious kind of how you balance all of those investments. Like, not to say they're all competitive, because I think at some point everything in crypto is, but maybe to put it more specifically, you guys have a lot of portfolio companies that are trying to build ecosystems. Curious kind of how you balance that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is capacity to build multiple ecosystems, and I think it kind of goes back to what we're saying to Shuyao, where I think the problem that most teams face when they fail to build a successful ecosystem is because they're just not opinionated enough. We talk to a lot of teams that are trying to get a dev ecosystem going on their chain, and it's kind of like you were alluding to earlier, where it's like, oh, we're going to have Uniswap or XYZ swap, and we're going to have USDC, and we're going to have Chainlink, and it's like, okay, so you have this exact same playbook as everybody else, and you have to try to beat them at their own game, which is really hard, versus kind of zigging off the ordinary path, which is hard because you have to think for yourself and doing something that you might get ridiculed for, and come up with novel ideas. But those are the ones that end up sticking around and succeeding. And I think a lot of the successful infra projects, they're kind of a one of one, right? They kind of invent their own category, and they're doing something different. It's not, oh, it's this thing, but it's more performant, or it's more decentralized, or it's better in some nominal way. It's just very different than a lot of the other things that are out there. I think that's kind of a little bit what we look for, is teams doing something meaningfully different that are also just competent and capable and able to do that. But you're right. I think a lot of teams underestimate the challenge of building a ecosystem, and those are the ones that I think we end up not investing into because they kind of don't. They face this exact problem, and I think it's one of those things where if you can do it, great. You've sort of built this sick aircraft carrier, and it can go really far, and it can have this whole sort of support ecosystem around it. But if you don't, then you kind of sink, and the momentum kind of unwinds, and you sort of roll back downhill, and then it's hard to get it going again. And so I think we do tend to be a little bit pickier when it comes to backing a chain versus backing an app or a SaaS product or an exchange or something. I think a lot of those can kind of succeed.
It's interesting to hear the perspective. Maybe to round it out, would just love to hear from each of you, how is Dragonfly how have you guys worked together, and kind of what role has Dragonfly played in growing the Mega Mafia?
Sure, you want to go?
Yeah, I think when we were raising, we had to compare, because for large funds, right, they kind of tell you almost a similar thing, right? We're going to help you with hiring, we're going to help you with marketing, we're going to help you with legal, blah, blah, blah. And it's really difficult to really understand what exactly they're going to do. And I think working with Dragonfly for the last, let's say, 6, 7, 8 months, I feel like everything they've promised kind of have come true. They're extremely hands-on, and I can be more specific. So the hiring team was exceptional. I think the weekly Dragonfly talent digest was very helpful, really top quality talents that I take a look at almost every single week. And then the legal support as well. We're a very tiny, small team. So I think Dragonfly provides us quite a lot of professional advice from this side, and we know we can trust them. But I think the highlight of our partnership is definitely Tom and Sanat. Tom, obviously, every time I go to him for some questions, I just know that I will be brutally beaten up in a very good way. And man is extremely sharp, understand products, can be very hands-on as well, a great sense of humor. Now I feel like I just say something bad to compliment. Otherwise, this all looks a little bit fake. But the other thing, like I've been impressed by Tom is how available he. Actually, the entire Dragonfly team is extremely available. Like if you throw a question any time of the day, someone will respond. If you ask to hop on a call, someone will respond. Tom is also extremely opinionated. I would say that we don't often agree on the same thing. I get pushed back, but sometimes I think he's proven wrong as well. But I think having someone who's a thought partner is extremely helpful. Another person I always want to point out is Sanat. I think he's one of the most underrated investors I've ever worked with. He's not only available, but also extremely helpful and very hands-on, right? So we have about 12 members in Mega Mafia. We are working with 50 builders in MegaZoo. Sanat literally just flew out to Thailand for a whole week and met with almost 50 builders. So I can always see him in the restaurant, just like talking to each one and giving me extremely detailed feedback. Who's doing well, who's promising, who could join the Mega Mafia. He's always extremely candid with me on other ecosystem, tell me my weakness as well. So I feel like Sanat is someone who I can be very vulnerable. I can ask for very specific, detailed hands-on help. Obviously, everyone else working, GM is a wizard on his own. Frequently sharing the Kaito insights on how MegaETH is doing. Cheryl came from a very different background, very complementary to us as well. So I think to summarize, Dragonfly has been extremely easy to work with. I know I can be honest with them. I remember I went on a hike with Hasib in SF a few months ago, and I was just giving him feedback on what we can work better, where we can improve, etc. And he really accepted all of them and immediately improved. He's also the one who pointed out, like, for example, he believed that I was under hiring. I was quite burnt out, I was doing everything. And none of my other investors on my cap table was able to point that out to me. And the moment he pointed out, I was like, oh my God, you're goddamn right. And then the following week, I hired my head of ecosystem. And my life has been significantly better since then. So I think Dragonfly does have that capability to point out exactly what I'm missing at the right time so that I can go improve. And my life is better now.
This is a strong endorsement. I'm ready to raise from these guys.
I've never had my performance review before, so I'm glad I passed.
Go for it.
Everything Shuyao said is 100% true. No, I think you said it right. It's like every VC is going to promise you the world when it comes to portfolio support. And, I'm obviously very biased. I think in many respects we do excel. Like I think our talent team is amazing. Ultimately it's the person, it's the investment team. It's the people that you are going to call and, get on a phone with when they're at the airport and you're at the airport and there's something very urgent, but you want to make sure that they pick up the phone, and that's a true story. And I think it's that is kind of what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is like, is this somebody that is going to call me out on my shit that I find to be a collaborative partner that's going to be there for me, that I actually want to work with and I find insightful, and like I don't think there's like a secret formula behind it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this was a really great conversation. Really enjoyed having both of you on. Thanks for taking the time. Maybe just to close it out, like where should people follow you and get in touch after this if they're interested either in joining the Mega Mafia or working with Dragonfly? Yeah,
if you're developers, Mega Mafia is obviously recruiting. We have a really high bar there. We don't like to work with people.
You have to be 10 or 100x minimum.
quick, soon as out next. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. So but really, we want to be the dumbest people in the room. If you think you're building something novel, if you're fascinated by what a high-performance blockchain really unlock, feel free to reach out to me. I am hotpot_DAO on Twitter. If you are a consumer retail who are just curious about the vibe, I promise we have good vibes. Join our Discord. I've been hearing a lot of people saying that our Discord is the most refreshing, the wholesome one. There are absolutely zero bots. We have actually a study group happening right now. We did a little crypto native quiz 3 weeks ago. Everyone failed. I think Tom scored really poorly on that quiz. I don't know why he's still an investor.
I got like a 75. That's pretty good.
It's a lot of people who are above 80. So we did a quiz. So if you're curious, you can take the quiz. And we're doing a study group on our Discord because we realize people don't even know how Bitcoin works. So that's our little contribution to the ecosystem.
That's good. For me, you can email me. I'm tom@dragonfly.xyz. I try to be pretty available. Follow me on Twitter, Tom H. Schmidt. And we're looking for people building cool, wacky, opinionated new ideas. That's what we live for. So
looking for the next MegaETH.
There's no next MegaETH.
What? I did not hear that.
Shuyao, Tom, thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.